So, welcome to episode 32 of Behind the Screen. This is technically season 6 of Behind the Screen, broken up by game line that I've done community content for, and also 2 seasons of just 5e material that I have written for my own personal gratification and my Patreon. But this is the first time that I've tackled Scarred Lands on stream, so this is as you can see material from down below. Material for the Sluretian Vault, the community content program that Onyx Path run for the Scarred Lands product line. And I'll be addressing how I personally, and hopefully through seeing how I personally approach writing subclasses for today's stream at least. There'll be some player race material as well in this supplement, but hopefully seeing how I do it can inspire you to kind of take what I do and improve upon it, because I'm not authoritative. I'm not an expert in any way. I'm just someone who likes making content, and it's entirely unofficial also. It's all community content. I don't work for Onyx Path. I'm not a freelancer on any project related to this, so this will be community content only. But I am disabled. I do experience muscle spasms, which can lead to twitching of my head, neck, shoulders, whole body really, but particularly can lead to stuttering and slurred speech, so I'll try to push through that as much as I can. Mostly right now I'm quite tired and, like a lot of people, extremely mentally stressed. My mental health is not great right now, and it can aggravate things, so I ask your forbearance with that. I do also struggle with multiple trains of thought, so I'll try to finish one thing before moving on to the next thing. If someone asks me a question, and please, as you can see right here, please do ask questions. It gives me some things to talk about beyond just narrating what I'm typing. I will try to finish what I'm talking about and then answer the question. If it's a long thing I'm talking about, I will acknowledge the question. But there we go. I'd also want to apologize for last time I streamed. I went off on a prescriptivist tangent about canon versus canons. The explosive artillery piece rather than official material. I just want to explain that when I'm tired, I have a thing about I have a problem with pedantry and precision, and clearly I'm British. Clearly I speak British English. When I'm tired, the pedantry and the precision do kind of get a bit too much for my normal thought police is the wrong word, but I do a lot of self-reflection when speaking to try and not be too pedantic and prescriptivist. Language evolves, and that's beautiful. I'm extremely invested in language as a storyteller and content writer and creator. And I feel like I may have implied that British English is the only dialect of English that should exist, and I wish to clarify that is not my thought at all. There is no incorrect way of speaking English or writing English. All dialects are valid. When I'm extremely tired, as I was last week, my pedantry and my kind of this is the way I was taught, so this is the way it must be mindset kind of takes over, and that kind of what was the thing I read? Your first thought is what society tells you to think. Your second thought is what you think. The first thought was definitely in control last week, and I wanted to apologize for that. So hopefully I've conveyed my apology clearly and succinctly. Also, as a side note, I have a thing about how words feel in the mouth, which is weird for most people. Canon to me just has a better mouthfeel, which also tied into that. But I just want to reiterate, canons is perfectly valid for the plural of artillery pieces. There we go. That was all that said. So Scarred Lands is before we get into the general start show and stuff. Scarred Lands is a 5e OGL compatible game, so I may, and by may I mean almost certainly will, reference my own 5e OGL Patreon, because that's where I put most of my community content, or most of my It's just content because it's mine. I wrote it for my own game line. That's where I get most of the experience from, and from running a lot of 5e games. So I'll be referencing that if people ask questions that require referencing. You can see some of that already in the feature names on the Barbarian class features table. Ignore those; those are going to be deleted. They're just I literally just copy pasted the table from the Google Doc I wrote for my Patreon into the Google Doc for this stream. So sorry, but I didn't have time to clear them all out. That's all. So starter show standard stuff, as ever, and of interest because of Scarredlands material. If you want updates on Onyx Path products, where the company is, etc., etc., the Monday meeting notes are a good place to start. Kind of the Cliff Notes version, apart from the badass art. There's a customer survey currently going on. If you have not yet filled it out, the link is... I've posted the link in chat, but it's also accessible through that, through the Monday meeting notes. Just about kind of like what you think about the company and their products and things like that. I've already filled it out. Highly recommend that you do the same. What next? That's really it. It's mostly about the survey. Exalted Essence continues with playtests and stuff, so if you're into Exalted but are put off by the weight, size, density of third edition, the Essence, which is like streamlined version, Fate Core, Fate Accelerated, I guess, or condensed or what have you, equivalent is still in development. Playtests are still happening. The next and possibly last Kickstarter of the year will be Dead Man's Rust for Scarredlands. My understanding, I'm going to move this so I can see chat. My understanding is that it is a mega adventure for Scarredlands, so that sounds pretty hype. I'll definitely be checking that out. The Kickstarter page has just been started, kind of being built, so that'll be cool. November 10th, so today, through to the 26th, there'll be there's a sale on DriveThruRPG for animal-themed RPGs. Realms of Pugmire and Werewolf are up to... The core books for Realms of Pugmire and Werewolf are up to 50% off, and the other books in those lines will be 20% off through the period that I described. And Rich T's working on Scion Dragon stuff, which is exciting. I have just noticed this show is not... I mean, it's kind of, a moot point at this point, to use the American English definition of moot, to mention that my show is not on the Twitch kind of text schedule. It's on the graphic one, so that's cool. Again, I do not appear in the videos on the Monday meeting notes, because they go up on my personal channel rather than the Onyx Path channel. Onyx Dice is pretty cool. Gauntlet of Spirogos. If you do go away from this and are interested in Scarredlands, there is a virtual tabletop compatible adventure called the Gauntlet of Spirogos. I think it's one of the oldest adventures for Scarredlands, but it's been adapted to work with Astral, which is a pretty good virtual tabletop. If you want to kind of get into it with a quick start, not a quick start, introductory adventure. There we go. On other DriveThruRPG notes, Black Friday, Cyber Monday has Storypath discounts, apparently. Sourcebook for Trinity Continuum Aeon, Jumpstart for Trinity Continuum, also on sale this week. And that's it. The kind of... Where is it? Dead Man's Rust, Scarredlands Kickstarter, Kickstarter art remaining is incoming, so that's, is what it is. Yugman's Guide to Gelspad and Vigil Watch are both in layout, so that's pretty hype. I hear good things about those. I've been waiting until they're complete to get them purely for financial reasons. Okay, I think that was a very rushed recap of the Monday meeting notes, and if anyone has any questions about anything, please, feel free to ask. I probably won't be able to answer because I don't know all that much, because again, I am a fan, I am not a member of Onyx Path, of the Onyx Path development team, or in any way, but there we go. Okay, so specifically, what are we doing today? You'll see the title of the Twitch stream references Frostlands of Fenrilik. Week before last, the day after I streamed last, I should say. It's clearer for me. Onyx Path released a supplement on the Solution Vault called Frostlands of Fenrilik, which opens up the roof of the world, which is the Arctic continent of Fenrilik, to Solution Vault content. It is cold. It has, 6 months of sun, 6 months of dark, and that's pretty much all you really need to know. The Divine War didn't affect Fenrilik all that much, so they don't really have a problem with the redeemed. I say in air quotes because if they don't care about the Divine War, they're not going to really care if you're Ironborn or Sutak. They're just going to care if you're trying to kill them or not. But because it's very difficult to get to Fenrilik, few people manage to get there, and they have their own problems. Quite apart from the weather, there's crawling glaciers, which are a super fancy kind of ooze. Skerai, which are, I guess, psionic scorpion people that have a very, very particular thing about injecting you with lava with their own larvae. Larvae, is that the plural of lava? I think it is. And allowing it to take over your body. And obviously, weather, fell creatures, your own mind when trapped in the darkness. So all of the subclasses in this document, which you'll be able to see, I have tentatively titled People of the Snow, both on the overlay and in the document itself. The vast bulk of it is going to be one subclass for each of the classes provided in the 5e OGL kind of basic rules, as well as right now I have ideas for 2 player races, so that's pretty hype. But if anything occurs to me, I will add another player race or 2. Based on personal experience, it takes me about 2 hours to write 3 subclasses while talking through thought processes and stuff on stream. So I'm estimating this is going to be a 4 or 5 stream thing, which will take me past Christmas. But right now, the player races are limited to just names, the Geist and the Ursid. The Geist is inspired by the Hollow Legionnaires. They are people killed by exposure, but who have not passed on for whatever reason. Oh, hey, that's a bot. And ban. And Ursid are more inspired by the Manticora and the Ironborn, the Slytherin, the Asathi. They're bear people. There's no easy way. There's no need to be coy. They're bear people. You can probably tell from the name, to be fair. But I haven't really put any thought into those because I wanted to get the subclasses done first. I've got some rough ideas of what I want to do with the Geist and the Ursid player option, racial options. But as I say, I want to get the classes done first. Now, it probably won't come up because, again, I said that I can do about 3 in 2 hours. And by the time I've done the intro and the outro, I've only got like an hour and 40 minutes anyway. But I 100% have not done the kind of narrative for the Warlock and Wizard options. So just be aware of that if I'm scrolling down. You notice there's no narrative there. There will be eventually, I promise. There just isn't right now. It took me an hour to write... There were 12 classes. It took me an hour to write 10 subclass intros. Kind of making sure that they jive with established fiction and stuff. So we'll see how it goes, shall we? We're going to go down them in alphabetical order. So Barbarian, Path of the Hunter. So what I have done... Sorry, please don't excuse me. What I have done is... there is the narrative of the subclass, which I'll explain in a moment. There is the features table, and that's it. I've obviously named all the subclasses, but the names are subject to change. Like, I'm not happy with Skerai Patron for Warlock, for example, or Skerai Hunter for Ranger. I might rename those. The Weather Tradition is very much a placeholder title. I was thinking Meteoromancer, but it doesn't really flow nicely. It has a bad mouthfeel. So that's very much a workshopping thing. But anyway, Barbarian, Path of the Hunter. Oh, right, narratives. So, unlike story path systems, which obviously I've worked on before, or Storyteller, which I've worked on the show before, where they're very freeform, skills-driven systems, if you are more familiar with those, but less so with D&D 5e, which is what the basic rules that we're using here come from, or Scarred Lands, 6 ability scores, which give you ability score modifiers, which you add to rolls of dice. It's not a pool system. You're generally rolling 1d20, 20-sided die, adding a number to it. The kind of flexibility comes less from your skill selection and your aspirations, desires, what have you. There's no mechanical weight to narrative role-playing in D&D. It's just a kind of a prompt system where you can randomly generate personality traits to guide the narrative. D&D is much more of a mechanically focused game. The basic rules have, 9 question mark player races with 1 sub-race each, and 12 classes with 1 sub-race each. If you own the, player's handbook for D&D, there's obviously more sub-races and subclasses. But as part of the 5th edition release, there is a thing called the Open Gaming License, which applies to a very kind of pared down rule set. One sub-race for each of the races, 1 subclass for each of the classes. Not all of the spells that are included in the player's handbook are included in the SRD. That's the one I've been looking for, the system reference document, which the OGL covers. Mechanically focused class-based character leveling system. That's the best way to explain it in Stable Deus. Thank you. Yes, not all of the spells are covered in the SRD, or are in the SRD and allowed for kind of external use by the OGL. There's loads of 3-letter acronyms. And some of the spells that are in there are in the player's handbook but have a different name because the wizard that the spell is named after is owned. It's like copyright, product identity, owned by wizards rather than released for free. So a lot of people have heard of things like Lehman's Tiny Hut, for example, Mordekainen's Magnificent Mansion. Lehman and Mordekainen are product identity, so there is simply Tiny Hut and Magnificent Mansion. So if I'm looking through the spell list and going, this would be good for a domain spell, is this in the SRD? And it's not, that is why. It is just not allowed. It's also why the Scarred Lands Player's Guide, which is a big book in and of itself at 314 pages, doesn't actually include, how to play. Because those rules are available for free. Whoops. But it does include a lot of setting information on Gelspad. So, swings and roundabouts. But because it is a mechanically focused game, the narrative comes through in the player choices that you make. So I've mentioned races. There are 9 in the SRD. The Scarred Lands Player's Guide has a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 races, some of which are in the player's handbook and the SRD, some of which are exclusive to the Scarred Lands, the Asathi, Hollow Legionnaires, Ironbred Manticora, and Slytherin, for example. And race is kind of the first thing that people choose. I mean, you roll your ability scores. You pick a race. Races give you bonuses to ability scores. They give you languages. They give you sometimes skill, tool, weapon proficiencies, and they usually have 1 or 2 things that the race can do because of its unique anatomy. And then building on top of that, the next level of narrative you get is your class choice. They're archetypal. Barbarian usually gets angry and hits stuff. Bard is there to make everyone better. Usually is can be the face of the party. Cleric prays to gods for divine magic. Archetypal healer. Druids have nature magic and animal stuff. Fighters. Monks learn different martial arts. Paladins are divine spellcasters that hit things really hard. Rangers are guides, trackers. Usually have a bow, but don't have to. Rogues are extremely skilled, usually, but they're a very kind of they're a glass cannon. But so for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, they can deal a lot of damage, but they can't necessarily take it in return. Sorcerers are spellcasters who were born with the ability to cast magic. Warlocks are spellcasters who have bargained for the ability to cast magic. And wizards are exactly what they sound like. They are wizards. Those are the core classes in the SRD. And they're largely split into like martial spellcasting and hybrid classes, but that's all you really need to know. This isn't an intro to Scarred Lands. Although if anyone wants me to... Anyway. That's the first layer of narrative. What kind of fantasy archetypal warrior do you wish to be? Second layer of narrative, sorry. The third layer is your subclass. So, at certain levels, your class features table says that you get a subclass feature. Depending on your class, this could be first level, if you are, for example, a cleric or a sorcerer. Warlock also, I believe. Second level for druids and wizards, and I think another class, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Or third level for everyone else, basically. That's why if you are interested in playing an introductory game, I highly recommend you find someone willing to run a third level game, because at that point everyone has a subclass. But the subclasses are where you take the archetype of the class and you pare it down. You specialize in something. So, for example, the archetypal Barbarian, because it's just the one we've got in front of us, in the SRD, if I can find it, I believe it's the Berserker. Yes, Path of the Berserker. So you enter a Berserk Rage. Very, very much focused on dealing as much damage as you possibly can, and really that's it. If you want to deal damage in large amounts consistently, the Path of the Berserker for the Barbarian is a good place to start. And this holds true in Scarred Lands because it's built on the same rule set. Barbarian subclasses are Path of the Hura, Path of the Tail Fighter for Slytherin because they have tails, and Path of the War Shaman, which gives you a bit of spells. But they typically, the subclass is a way of, as I say, specializing within the overall archetype of your class. Which brings me to the subclasses we're dealing with. So the first thing I ever do when trying to create any content for any game is hone in on the narrative that I want to tell. So with the Scion stuff, that was very much for the introductory adventure. The narrative there was an introduction. I wanted to explain how the world works to people who don't know. In Chronicles of Darkness, again, that was an introduction to the concepts and themes of Chronicles of Darkness, the hidden horrors of the world. The previous series of this, the narrative there was the Inkborn. The Inkborn themselves are a narrative pantheon, so the narrative was less on the story of the pantheon and more on the stories that you could tell with the pantheon. Because this is less overarching in terms of narrative flexibility and more very focused on your character build, the narratives here are on the subclasses. So all of the narratives these subclasses are designed to help you tell or to explore or what have you are related to Fenrilik and the unique... not unique. Influenced by the unique dangers that you can find on Fenrilik, whether that be the cold, other weather systems, the long dark of the polar night, scare eye, what have you. And that's, after half an hour, the intro. So, you can see Barbarian Path of the Hunter. So, a lot of Barbarians, as I mentioned, are single. Subclasses also typically contribute to the game in a way that something else doesn't. By which I mean, usually, not all the time, because sometimes I'll explain that in a moment. Usually, a subclass will add something to the class that no other subclass does. Sometimes that means it starts playing like another class. So, I don't think these are covered by the SRD. I don't think any examples of these are covered by the SRD. So I'll just go to the Scarred Lands book because it's more relevant than Player's Handbook stuff. So Using, again, the Barbarian as an example, because it's what's just in front of us, the Path of the War Shaman kind of blends the Barbarian and the Druid together. You get access to Druid spells, you get access to spellcasting, which is... The Barbarian isn't a spellcaster, in case that wasn't obvious. But you get access to Druid spells, so you kind of reach a hybrid point between Barbarian and Druid. Sorry, I have wind. I gotta hydrate, see if that helps. And then I'll continue with my much long-winded speech. But by and large, the Barbarian subclasses are focused on, like, I'm a tank, I will hit things really hard and deal as much damage as I possibly can. And that's fine, you know, that is valid. It is valid from a game design point of view, it is valid from a narrative point of view, and it is valid from a player-facing point of view. But it doesn't have to be the be-all and end-all. So, for the Barbarian, Path of the Hunter. Whilst many barbarians like to lose themselves in the fury of battle, worship animal spirits, embody primal forces of nature, or tread the fine line of titan worship, barbarians from Fenrilik prefer to keep a calmer head in battle. Not for them the roar of uncontrolled fury. This is all subject to change, obviously, when I edit it. They've been moulded by this cold, unforgiving land, and know that if you want to survive out here, you need to put your trust in others as much as in your weapons and yourself. So this is going to be a... not... I was about to say not support barbarian, but they're functionally going to be a support barbarian. This is a barbarian who's going to help other people as much as at the expense of dealing like high amounts of damage. They still can dish it out because that's the core concept of the barbarian class, but they will also help other people to do it, whether that's through training or it's all going to be through class features because that's how D&D works. But through training or kind of intuitive understandings or learned experience. So as I said, ignore Titaniumite, resistance, power, and regeneration. Those are from my my Patreon. First thing is bonus proficiencies. Gonna have a couple of skills, and also we're going to have skilled partner. Nope, that's the skill. So feature names typically are evocative of the feature, and again, time with the narrative. So Path of the Hunter isn't set in stone. It just does what I want it to. It tells the story I want it to tell at this moment. If when I go through and sort out the mechanical effects of the subclass, that changes. I'm not attached to the title in any way. I will change the name of the subclass. I was really struggling with this earlier. You know what? Let's just put X, 4 X's, 3 X's. Twitch doesn't like the 3X. Twitch doesn't like the 3X's even. Right, so this is the wrong heading. That's fine. Bonus proficiencies. XXX. This needs to be heading 3. Something that I will be doing is I will name the feature. I will add the. I will simply summarize the mechanical effect of the feature. So, for example, here nature and survival. And then once I've got all of that sorted, I'll go back through and sort out the actual wording of the feature. Help as a bonus action. I forgot to open something. Please bear with me. Where is it? This should be fine to open. Get out of here, gunsmith. No one wants you. Alright, this is not a good example. Sorry about this. I thought I'd opened all the things I need to reference, and I just realized I did not open, in fact, all the things I need to reference. Actually, no, the SRD has all the information I need. Egypt. Okay, so ignore all of that. So, as you can probably imagine, the first features you get from your subclass are the first building block of the narrative of that subclass. They tell you, they give you everything you need to do to convey that subclass. Everything after that simply builds upon it. Some classes, some classes have like tendencies within their subclasses to kind of revisit the same thing. So, for example, Bard subclasses generally have at 3rd level a way to interact with the Bardic Inspiration class feature. Some classes don't. All of the subclasses are wildly different. There's no unifying theme. That is not the case here, obviously. Cold-Hearted Fury. Add rage damage modifier mod to attack rolls. And I'll explain why I'm doing these things. Well, you know, let's do it now. Let's just explain as I do. So 3rd level bonus proficiencies. You've trained to hunt in maybe not an Arctic environment, but you're a trained hunter within a certain environment, and that has given you the skills to track, to find food, to identify common animals. Helping is a bonus action. You're just used to working with others. You know how best to do that, so you can help someone as a bonus action. This may get a ranged effect, but the way I kind of envisage it is, while yes, barbarians can be a ranged fighter, most of the time they aren't played that way. So the way I'm envisaging it is, if there's like 3 of you around something, and you aren't using the combat flanking optional rule, you can help the person opposite you to get advantage on their attack rolls. Those of you who don't know, advantage is where you roll your attack. You roll the d20 twice, you pick the higher result. It's a decently powerful effect within the rule system that a lot of people kind of seem to overlook in favor of just adding numbers instead. Or if you are using the combat flanking rule where you're on opposite sides of your target, you can help someone else with the help action. I might give it a 10-foot range to account for large creatures. If they're trained to work with others, would they gain a leadership bonus which could be applied to others' roles? I don't know is the thing. If yes, which is entirely likely, I was thinking that the rage damage modifier to attack rolls improves at 14th level, so it can apply to one other person's roll as a reaction made when the other person makes their attack. But that's kind of, I haven't quite decided yet. Advantages have similar a small pool roll as found in similar systems. Yeah, they do. They do. It's a good way of putting it. Unstable Deus, thank you. I realise that you'll hear a lot, and obviously my own channel a lot, Unstable Deus, and I have no idea which games you prefer to play. But I'm taking from the way you're speaking that you have some experience with 5e rules, with the 5e rule set. Anyway, so, and then Cold-Hearted Fury, add rage damage mod to attack rolls. Barbarians get a damage bonus when they're raging. Just helps them deal a bit more damage. Because this is a barbarian that is used to working with others, that is used to keeping a cooler head than maybe other barbarians would, this damage bonus can be added to attack rolls as well, just to ensure that they're right, that was what I was going to do. If target is being attacked by another hostile creature. So essentially, if you play this barbarian and you're attacking a single target alone, plays like any other barbarian. If you are playing this barbarian and you are attacking a target with one other person that is hostile to that target, you can draw upon the skill. You can draw upon your more kind of rational anger than other barbarians to work together to bring it down. Played 3 and 3.5, but not played 5th rules. Oh, cool. Yeah, I played 3. I've played 3.5 onwards, and 5th edition is the easiest to learn. If anyone is curious out there and has experience with 3.5 or 4th. Could just make it the 10th level class feature, actually, that they could share that attack bonus. Let's call that Learned Wisdom for now. Learned Wisdom. I really could just have copy-pasted that, huh? Whoops-a-daisy. Oh, that's not how you spell that word. Learned Wisdom. Use reaction to grant bonus to allied attack roll. And then 14th level. So obviously there are only 4 class features here. 4 subclass features here. As a kind of broad stroke, so I'll just bring it down. Explanation of class features in 5e. If you are a martial class, by which I mean you're not a spellcaster or a hybrid like the paladin or the ranger, you get a class feature at every level, 1 through 20. 4 of those, in the barbarian's case, come from a subclass. The other 16 just come from being a barbarian. Actually, you technically get more than 16, but you get at least one class feature every level. If you are a spellcaster, you don't, because at every level you get at least one spell slot, which just lets you cast more spells. You have fewer class features, but you can cast spells, which are reasonably powerful. And then if you are a hybrid class, it gets weird. You get more class features and fewer spell slots. Usual Storytell system, remember dice list saver. L05. Pugmai, very social, with a lot of experience. Pool-based, skill-based story systems. Oh, well, Pugmai is based on the 5e, so... Based on the 5e OGL. But that's a good... Obviously, you don't need my approval, but there's a good range of games. It makes me happy to see people playing loads of different games rather than just being like, this is the only game worth playing. What do I call it? Bring it down. Whoops, that wasn't what I wanted in the slightest. I've just done goofed. Oh, no, there we go. So this will also be... not sure if this is going to be like the full reaction or just an action. Or a reaction or a full action. It's probably... It might be both. Wish more D&D players had that perspective. It's a discussion for a different time. We can have that discussion on my channel if you want to Unstable Deus. But yes, I wish it too. Bring it down, reaction. Just trying to think how to phrase this. You know what? This hasn't been done before, to my knowledge, in an official published thing. But that's the joy of subclasses and community content. You can experiment. So, the Barbarian, by level 14, I believe, is making 3 attacks a turn. That was the wrong PDF. Where's extra attack gone? Or do they cap out at 2? Is it the fighter that gets 3 a turn? That's just the fighter that gets 3 a turn. Okay, so by this level, the Barbarian's doing 2 attacks a turn. minimum. They might be dual wielding for a third one, who knows. Which, you know, decent number of attacks. I might just leave it as reaction then. Sorry, I'm just thinking. Yes, let's leave this as a reaction. When taking the attack action. Until start of next turn, make melee. No, let's not penalize ranged barbarians. Make attack when allies attack must. This is all obviously very note form. I'm going to go through now and reword them. Attacks must be against target of the allies. Attack may not add proficiency bonus, but may benefit from, what was it called? Cold-Hearted Fury. So depending on party size, obviously your mileage with this will vary, but you could gain for anywhere from, I guess, technically a 1 additional attack to... You know what, let's have a range limit on this. Allies within... I'd say 20 feet for now. Again, kind of... This is very much a... double down on the idea of this barbarian as a teammate rather than a single target thing. Completely lost in the moment. Ooh, if I tie it to Rage, which is the... Rage is the barbarian's kind of unique class feature, which gives them extra damage and damage resistance and stuff. If I tie it to the Rage, I could do the Berserker thing, where you gain a level of exhaustion after the Rage ends. 6 levels of exhaustion, you die. Each level has its own associated penalties. First level, disadvantage on ability checks, then your... I think it's ability checks and saving throws. Speed is halved, I think. Then attack rolls, and then there's a health penalty, and then you can't move, and then you die. I think that's the way it goes. Could be wrong about the health penalty. Exhaustion is bad, let's put it that way. Yeah, let's have a... When raging. Gain a level of exhaustion on rage end. Rage has its own kind of... It lasts a minute, and it has its own things for how it ends, which I won't go into right now, but that should balance out the, you know, potential, like, 5 extra attacks in a 6-person party. The may not add proficiency bonus to the attack roll. I might put this as well. So this is kind of tying it in with the rules for 2-weapon fighting. Because this is potentially a lot of attacks over a very short period of time, it's more just kind of like blind swinging, like short, fast blows rather than the more precise, measured blows of a normal attack action. Okay, so I still need to rename this. All of the stuff I can think of is way too professional sounding for a barbarian. Like Battlefield Orator. Synergistic Fighter. I guess just work as one. Whoops. How did I not think that would happen? How did I not think that would happen? Anyway, there we go. So, bonus proficiencies. At 3rd level. Battlefield Commander? Yeah. That, to me, would just be another subclass. That just gives me more ideas on Stable Dales, but I appreciate this suggestion. For anyone who doesn't know, there was a class in 4th edition called the Warlord, which a large percentage of 5th edition players are very unhappy didn't make the transition because it was such a good class idea. But then there's so many classes in 4th edition. Anyway, bonus proficiencies at 3rd level. Your knowledge of edible flora and fauna. Mean you can generally find what you need to survive in the local area. Barbarians, in your opinion, should be written at no higher than 4th grade reading level. that feeling when art imitates life. You gain proficiency in the nature and survival skills. Oh, hang on. I should check something. I have the SRD open. Something you do not do well with. Oh, I can sort of mimic writing styles, but not very well. Nature and survival are both on the Barbarian skill list. Not surprisingly, I guess. But there are other options that you could pick from. So, it says because what the reading level military manuals are written to. Eesh. Actually, in all fairness, the instruction manuals I had to write for the security company I worked for, they were very basic. I mean, I could try it if you really wanted. This is more to keep it in line with the established style guides and stuff, though. That's nice, spell that would. Also, insert standard apology about webcam shaking and stuff. Again, it's a stable desk, but the monitor moves when I type. Beginning at 3rd level, you know how to strategize in the moment and can share this ability with others. You may use help as a bonus action. Let's give it a range. With a range of... Okay, so D&D do it as nomenclature, breaking the style would be worse. Oh, it really would. But for my own personal gratification, I might do like an April Fool's thing. Or a Barbarian subclass in very simple English. So in D&D, creatures have sizes: small, tiny, small, medium, large, huge, gargantuan, colossal. Most player races are medium. They can defend a 5-foot cube. Large creatures can defend a 10-foot cube. Huge is 15 foot, gargantuan 20, colossal 25. I think most kind of like hunters would oh, right, I've got the Fenrir Link thing open. I can just look at the sizes of the creatures that I've got in mind, and we'll just use that as the, we'll just use that as the determining factor here. Creatures of Fenrir. Feldir as a large creature. Oh, that's a gargantuan beast. Yeah, I won't... Hang on. I need to get my numbers right here. Unless anyone in chat can remember off the top of their head the size of a gargantuan creature on a battle grid. 20 by 20 or larger. Found it, never mind. Yeah, let's just give it a range of 20 then. Because you can then just shout across the animal with a range of 20 feet. It's very similar to the Master of Tactics. So I've been ignoring text when I get them when I'm streaming, but recently they've... Interesting. Recently they've been important, like that one, which proclaims to be from Halifax, which I don't actually have a Halifax bank account. So I'll have to check my bank account after that, because they're the same, technically the same bank as the people I bank with. Anyway, what was I saying? I have completely forgotten. Never mind, moving on. Cold-Hearted Fury. This is a 6th level feature. When you reach 6th level, you are capable of overcoming your using your rage to better determine your opponent's weaknesses. So I could tie it in with the rage, or I could just have it as a blanket thing. Although it is adding the rage damage modifier. Yeah, so it's... I've just answered my own question. Never mind. When you are raging, you may apply the... Oh, what's it called? I think it's just called rage damage. Whoop. Scroll through the SRD really quickly. Yeah, it's just called rage damage. Rage damage bonus shown in the Barbarian class features table. To your attack rolls. If a creature hostile to your target is within 5 feet of your target. Yeah, is within 5 feet of it and not incapacitated. No incapacitated. Not incapacitated. When you reach 6th level, you're capable of using your rage to better determine your opponent's weakness. When you're raging, you may apply the rage damage bonus shown in the Barbarian class features table to your attack rolls if a creature is hostile to your targets within 5 feet of it and is not incapacitated. I think that works. I could just steal the wording of sneak attack, but I always feel the sneak attack wording is overly complicated. It works for now. Moving on. 10th level. Have I used buy yet? I have not. By 10th level, your assessment of enemy weaknesses are second nature. Autocorrect, why? Why did you not help? Are instinctive. And you can share your knowledge with nearby allies. As a reaction. So the 5th edition rules use what's called the action economy. On your turn, you have an action and a bonus action, and also a reaction. A reaction can be taken out of turn, but it always has a specific trigger. The most common reaction is an attack of opportunity. If a creature leaves your melee range, which is not necessarily 5 feet, some weapons have a longer range, you may use your reaction to make an attack of opportunity. You get 1 reaction per turn. It refreshes at the start of your turn. So when you are creating any kind of mechanic that uses reactions, like Learned Wisdom and Bring It Down, you have to specify the trigger. So in this instance, as a reaction, taken when an ally, let's also give it 20 feet, within 20 feet, makes an attack roll. You may grant them a bonus to their attack rolls that lasts until the until the end of their turn. This bonus is equal to your rage damage modifier. Let's also specify taken when an ally who can hear you within 20 feet, or an ally within 20 feet who can hear you. I think that works better. Taken when an ally within 20 feet who can hear you makes an attack roll, you may grant the bonus to their attack rolls that last until the end of their turn, and this bonus is equal to your rage damage modifier. Can I reword this better? This, I'm not entirely happy with the wording of this, but I'll get back to it at some point. Okay, and then bring it down. When you reach 14th level, your skill at fighting alongside others allows you to draw upon their own I don't like the repetition of fighting. Working alongside others to bring creatures down. Whilst you are raging, may use your reaction taken trigger. Oh yeah, taken when you take the attack action. When you take the attack action to make a single weapon attack whenever an ally within 20 feet takes the attack action. This attack must be made against the target of the ally's attack, and you may not add your proficiency bonus or ability modifier to the attack and damage rolls. Brackets, your rage damage bonus is may still be added. May still be added to both. When your rage ends, you gain 1 level of exhaustion. Raise your action. Take the attack action to make a single weapon attack when an ally within 20 feet takes the attack action until the start of your next turn. or you have made a number of attacks equal to your proficiency bonus. So, note on proficiency bonus and why I think it's one of the single greatest things added to a game. From a homebrew, community content, what have you, perspective. So a lot of things in D&D are determined by bonuses, as you can probably tell. Your ability score modifiers come from your ability scores, which are usually rated 0 through 20. 0 you don't want, 20 is like the limit of mortal potentiality. And largely speaking, they're quite static. You get an ability score increase at levels 4, 12. You know what? Rather than trying to remember, because it is different for some classes, I'm just going to use the SRD. Level 4, level 8, level 12, level 16, and level 19 for, I think, most classes. I think the fighter gets an additional ability score increase. That ability score increase, as you can probably tell, is spent on your ability scores. You can improve one ability score by 2, or you can improve 2 ability scores by 1. There are also feats that you can choose, but they're not relevant to this discussion. Suffice to say, they add a little bit of narrative flexibility and mechanical flexibility to your character. But they go up in a very defined manner. And your abilities are your kind of inherent qualities: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Kind of like active, passive, not active or passive. To use other terminology from Storyteller Storypath games, you've got your power, your finesse, and your resilience abilities. So they each class ideally has a primary ability score, a primary ability, and like a secondary ability. Usually the secondary is Constitution, because that just gives you more health, but some subclasses mix that up. So there's a subclass, I don't think it's in the SRD, but there's a subclass for the fighter in the 5th edition Player's Handbook that allows you to cast spells. So as well as strength being, or dexterity being your primary ability score, you will also want to prioritize intelligence, because you cast spells as a wizard would. That caps out at 5, as I say. There are magic items that require that can take you over 5, and some temporarily, some permanently. But the proficiency bonus is a number tied to your kind of expertise, your training in the skill. Expertise has a mechanical weight. I should not have used that word. Your proficiency bonus starts at +2, and it goes up in a very predictable manner, because you could decide when you've got the ability score that you want to increase one thing or 2 things. You might want to increase a secondary characteristic. You don't always have to go for the same thing. Whereas your proficiency bonus goes up at guaranteed levels. So for people who are writing homebrew content, I'm going to move this so I can see the chat. For people who are writing homebrew content, it is great, and I don't see many people using it. Typically, the rules use an ability score, usually your primary ability score. So the Bard, for example, I mentioned Bardic Inspiration earlier. This is a class feature that allows you to give someone an extra die to use for 1 dice roll. Last 10 minutes, etc., etc. But the important part is that you can use it a number of times equal to your charisma modifier. The Bard is a charisma spell-based spellcaster. Charisma is their primary ability score. So a lot of things are kind of so that feature and other features are tied to a number which is usually going to probably realistically be between 2 and 5. But with an irregular and unpredictable, at least on paper, growth. The proficiency bonus, however, increases by 1 at the same level for every class. It is tied to your character level, not to your class level, and it increases from +2 at level 1 all the way to +6 at level 20. It increases at level 5, level 9, level 13, and level 17. It actually increases every time you get an ability score, the level after you get an ability score improvement. And it represents your training with something, but because, to my mind, if it represents your training with something, it also represents learned experience. So if you are like me, and you like the narrative of a subclass, I'm going to move this again, tying in with a learned experience, like with Bring It Down, rather than inherent characteristics, like Bardic Inspiration, the proficiency bonus makes for a better substitute, a better alternative, and also you can halve it. You can also halve ability score modifiers. You always round down in D&D, 5e, SRD, OGL, whatever you want to call it, and it's always usually like minimum of 1, so you don't unfairly penalize someone who has a low ability score. Because you can lose certain monsters can lower ability scores than spells and things. So in this instance, to my mind, I have two options. I can leave it as is. You made a number of attacks equal to your proficiency bonus, which at level 14, which is when you gain this class feature, would be 5. I could do it to number of attacks equal to half your proficiency bonus, which would be 2. So, is what it is. Or I could tie it to either of the Barbarian's quote-unquote primary ability scores of Strength or Constitution. Constitution being like physical, heartiness, and stamina, which could be 5 at this point, depending on how well you kind of invest points and stuff. And racial bonuses. I generally go with proficiency bonus because it's a training thing. How to explain? The class is what you do. The subclass is what you train in. So if it's a class that if I create a class and I've admittedly only created a handful of classes, and looking back, that's not some of my best design work, let's put it that way. Because you are choosing to do that class, but it's a very broad thing, I will generally provide... I'll tie the class features to ability score modifiers, because it's just what you do. It's who you are. It's what your talents lead you towards. Whereas a subclass is specific training, or subclass contains more trapping than class. Exactly, Unstable Deus. The subclass, because it is training, it is a conscious decision you have made to learn how to fight or study or spellcast or what have you in that specific way. I will generally tie subclasses to proficiency bonus because that's the training side of things. Sometimes, as in this instance, I may be kind of, should it be half your proficiency bonus or your full proficiency bonus? I'm leaning here towards full proficiency bonus because I've added the 1 level exhaustion, which is it's very easy as a barbarian to rack those up if you go for this. Especially, so I mentioned 6 levels of exhaustion is bad. You lose 1 level of exhaustion per long rest that you manage to rest throughout. And by this level, you can rage 5 times a day. So it is very possible that you'll be ending the day. If it's like a dungeon crawl or just a very intense story arc, very possible that you'll be accruing multiple levels of exhaustion from this feature. So because it is tied to that, and you have to be raging to do it, I'm happy to leave it as equal to your proficiency bonus. It will only increase by 1 after level 15 anyway, to +6. 1 second. Am I misremembering? I looked at this table not moments ago. Level 17 to +6. So that's not, particularly of an issue. you're probably not going to have 6 other party members anyway. But I also didn't want to penalize small parties or instances where the Barbarian might be alone. Not alone. I know what I was going to try to say, but I can't put it into words. Instances where you aren't with as many people as you might ordinarily be. There we go. You know what? I could just... comma, whichever happens first. There we go. Bit of a qualifier. You don't choose, it's whichever happens first. You either get to your turn again, or you make 5 attacks. 5 out-of-turn attacks that are slightly weaker, but still. There we go. That's my thought process. I hope it made sense to people. Moving on. Bard, College of the Long Dark. So, again, I'm going to try to do this for all the classes, because trying to reduce the individual's play differences between smaller and larger parties. Exactly, that was what I was trying to say. Obviously, if it's a larger party, you're going to get more attacks out of the feature. But without getting overly complex with the wording of the feature, which it's already pretty complex as it is, I don't have any better way of saying it, unfortunately. Anyway, Bards. Bards are charisma-based spellcasters. They can be the party face, but they are generally a support class. That is not to say they cannot hold their own. You can definitely build a Bard to be a combat monster or a spellcasting tank or whatever you want to call it. If damage is your focus, Bards are also one of the few... they also get one of the largest number of skills in the game. And also gain the ability to double their proficiency bonus in certain skills, similar to rogues. That is the word I was looking for. But as you can see, they don't get that many subclass features. They get 3. Well, they get 3 levels at which they gain a subclass feature, I should say. I'm just checking that is completely accurate. 1 there. 3, 6, and 14, right? 3, 6... Yep, that is accurate. But this leads into what I was saying about spellcasters. Spellcasters don't get a feature every level anyway, because they get spell slots. Bards get more features than most spellcasters, because of their nature as like a support thing. In fact, there are only 2 levels where they don't get anything but a spell slot. And at those levels... No, never mind. Yeah, there are two levels where they don't get anything but a spell slot. So they kind of break the general trend of classes. Anyway, there is a Bard subclass in the Frostlands of Fenrilik book, which is pretty cool, by the way. The whole book is pretty cool, but the Bard subclass, because I play Bards a lot, I'm not going to lie. I like playing Bards. Fenriliki subclasses, a Bard, College of Hope. It's about reminding people that during the long dark of the Arctic polar night, whichever the correct word is, do you run a game on this Twitch channel, and are there VODs available on YouTube for it? I personally don't run a game on this Twitch channel. My show is for community content. But I have run a game. I ran a game of Silent for a couple of weeks, way back at the start of this pandemic 10 years ago. That's what it feels like. But I do not actually run a game on the Twitch channel. There are loads of VODs on YouTube of games on that have been run on the Onyx Path channel, though, for a wide variety of things, including Scarred Lands, if you are interested in watching those. And if you have a Prime... This is just like a general statement, because I've been trying to figure out a way to segue this in the entire stream so far. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can link it to your Twitch account for a free Prime Gaming account, which gives you 1 free sub... A year? What? every 30 days, you can use that subscription on this channel, or you can just subscribe to the channel as normal, and you get access to the VODs of past streams for the previous week. There is a week's exclusivity, and also this applies to this stream. After that week's up, they usually end up on the Onyx Path Twitch YouTube channel for anyone to watch after they're deleted from... so Twitch automatically deletes videos after 60 days. But they go up on the YouTube channel, so you can watch them there. My streams are archived on my personal YouTube channel, again, after a week. I try for after a week. It's not always that. So you can catch stuff up. But if you are interested in Onyx Path games, highly recommend subscribing to them on YouTube. Nightbot has actually just dropped the link for YouTube. They've got the fancy custom link for just user/the Onyx Path, so definitely worth checking out. I don't have a fancy link. The best thing that you could do is go to YouTube and just type in Comrade Bubbles. It's right here. I'm Comrade Bubbles everywhere. It's not very original. Anyway, College of Hope, about keeping people hopeful, optimistic throughout the long dark of the polar night. I decided to flip this on its head. The College of the Long Dark, entirely the opposite. Bards on Fenric will fall broadly into two camps: those who look after the souls of the community they live in by reminding them of endless summers and the hope of a bright dawn, and those who focus on the long, infinite night of winter. These bards sing dirges, call on the darkest hours of the night, and serve as a reminder that the summer is a long time coming and it will require all of your resolve to make it through. Bards of this college are rarely the centre of attention, but if you need the focus or willpower to see a trying task through, there is no one else you need to call upon. So, as I mentioned, these are not the features we'll be using. These are from my Patreon, where I made like a Druid Bard hybrid. Do any proficiencies make sense for this before I delete bonus proficiencies? I don't think so. So I'm going to go with this instead. Unwavering Resolve and Isolate. So, as I mentioned, Bard subclasses generally get a feature that modifies how they interact with the Bardic Inspiration. I need to do that. No, I don't. With the Bardic Inspiration class feature. Extremely powerful class feature when used correctly. Unwavering Resolve is going to be that for this one. So, at its core level, Bardic Inspiration at this level is 1d6. The person who has Bardic Inspiration, and you cannot give it to yourself as the Bard, gains 1d6 that they may use over the next once over the next 10 minutes in game, whenever they roll the d20 for an attack roll, a saving throw, or an ability check. I believe it's the College of Law in the SRD. Yeah, so the class in the College of Law, the subclass in the SRD, allows you to expend a Bardic Inspiration die to subtract it from an enemy attack roll. Another example, Player's Handbook, the other college in the Player's Handbook. Oh, would you choose the one in Fenric? What am I doing? I've got Fenric. At third level, you may expend one use of Bardic Inspiration to grant an ally 2d6 temporary hit points for 10 minutes. Temporary hit points do not stack, but they are removed from... if you get hit with a weapon, you take the temporary hit points off first, so they're an extra layer of health, or armor, or however you wish to look at it. Anyway, so Bardic Inspiration here can be used to gain advantage on a concentration saving throw. Concentration check. I'll explain what all of these things mean once I've finished typing. Or of the time of a ritual. I'm following the example. I don't know why I struggle with that word. I'm following the example of the College of Hope in the Fenric book, in that you just expend a usage to do a thing rather than rolling a die. So a concentration check, when a spell some spells have the concentration keyword, and when you take damage, if you are concentrating on the spell, they typically have extended durations. Spells, I don't believe there are any instantaneous concentration spells, but I could be wrong about that. But if they have a duration, and the concentration keyword means that you have to concentrate on that spell for the duration. You cannot cast other spells with the concentration keyword, otherwise the first spell fails. And also when you take damage, you have to make a concentration check. There are a couple of other circumstances where you have to make a concentration check, but that's the most common one. So focusing on this college as a thing about just the resolve, the discipline of getting through the polar night without succumbing to fear, which would be a later feature. Advantage and concentration, for me, hits that narrative on the head. Like, you are much more likely to succeed. I'm reasonably confident that this feature will still allow you to add Bardic Inspiration die to that concentration check, but this just gives you advantage on it. The other part of the feature, half the time of a ritual, will probably be altered or clarified when I come to writing this out in full, but certain spells can be cast as rituals. Not every class can cast spells as rituals, but certain spells can be cast as rituals. A ritual takes 1 hour plus the normal casting time of a spell. The advantage of taking that extra hour, however, is that it doesn't use a spell slot. So you get the effects of the spell without the, in the long term, without the expenditure of a resource to cast the spell. And isolate. This is going to be another usage for Bardic Inspiration. Bardic Inspiration can be used to prevent a creature from being targeted by its allies. So at the other end of the spectrum, I don't know if anyone has been out walking in the wilderness at night, but it's very easy to feel alone, and not everyone is happy with that feeling. So this is to simulate that, and it's kind of like you can't be healed by allies because of this magical isolation effect, just to double down on that feeling. Usually there are not two ways of dealing with Bardic Inspiration. I also want to point that out. But like sometimes there are bonus proficiencies for the Bard at 3rd level, or you just get the ability to do something. In fact, I might tie this into you don't have to expend Bardic Inspiration, but you have to interact with the target for X amount of time. Or 1 hour conversation can be used to prevent a creature from being targeted by its allies for X hours, where X equals a roll of the inspiration die. There we go. That's better. Kind of reinforcing that whilst also tying it into the Bardic Inspiration. Anyway, 6th level is back to the SRD. Right, of course, I forgot to mention this with the Barbarian. Certain it's a bit hard to kind of hone in on and like clarify, but broad strokes. This is all broad strokes stuff. Broadly speaking, the subclasses As I mentioned, they are tied to a narrative of some kind, but some of the features that you gain are more like a narrative or a fluff feature than more of a concrete mechanical one. An example of this is Workers 1. Actually, both of these are more kind of fluff features. And broadly speaking, if you look at the pre-existing material, you can sort of hazard a guess as to which ones are more kind of leading into the narrative of the subclass rather than the mechanics of it. So my reading of Bard subclasses tells me that the 6th level is more of a narrative one. So I'm going to draw in on the dirges and the long cold dark rather than the inevitable summer at the end of it, which is the other College of Hope. Inured to Despair, which is a pretty cool name, if I do say so myself. Pressing all of the wrong buttons. There we go. Streamers Meltdown on Twitch, volume number 3028. Resistance to psychic damage and immune to fear. So not many things actually deal psychic damage, but equally not many things are resistant or immune to psychic damage. Constructs are the big one because they don't have a mind to affect. But those things that do deal psychic damage are, generally speaking, a big deal. So being immune to it, being resistant to it, which I say again, for those who are unaware, there are a handful of damage types in D&D, 5e, OGL, SRD, in the 5e SRD, let's say. And you can be one of 3 things. I'll technically be one of 4 things. You can be vulnerable to the damage type. Some, I guess. You can be vulnerable to the damage type, which means you take whenever you take damage of that type, you take twice as much damage as the total. You can react normally, like most people. I have to start using my thumb, by the way, because usually I would do 2 as that, but with my hand the wrong way around. If you don't know in British English, that is a rude gesture. So 2. You can react normally. 3, you can be resistant to a damage type, so you take half as much as you ordinarily would. The Barbarian, when raging, is resistant to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage from weapon attacks. So that's all weapons deal bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing, in essence. Sometimes some weapons deal different damage types, but that's because their blade is not made of metal. And then you can be completely immune. You take no. If you are hit with that damage, you just ignore it. The example I mentioned, constructs, they're immune to poison and psychic damage because they have no mind or circulatory system to be affected by poison or psychic. It's also not immune to fear. It's immune to frightened condition. There are conditions in the 5e SRD. The 2 most common that affect players in a way that most classes interact with, shall we say, and races for that matter, are charmed and frightened, kind of 2 sides of the same coin. Charmed is you treat the person that's charmed you as a friend. Really, that's it. There are other riders to it, but in essence, you view them as friendly. So you might question why your allies are attacking them, for example. Frightened is the opposite. You're terrified of them. You have to run away. If whilst they're in line of sight, you are at disadvantage to pretty much everything but saving throws. So while you can see them, because you're so scared of them, you're just worse at life, essentially. Because this college focuses on the long, dark polar night, they're more used to that kind of primeval fear that the Frightened Edition evokes, so they're just immune to the condition. And resistance to psychic damage, because a lot of, to my mind at least, like psychic damage is tied in with fear, and fear causing effects. Not mechanically, but narratively. Also, it just kind of gives you a bit of extra oomph to the class feature. And then 14 being the capstone of the class features, like the ultimate manifestation, shall we say. So, pause dramatically while thinking also allows me to sip my drink thoughtfully. So I think, because the narrative I have created for this subclass, so these bards will help you through, they'll teach you discipline, they'll show you resolve, etc., etc. I think I'm going to tie it into that. Peerless discipline. Nope, that way. Because when I make it into a heading, it will have the proper spacing. There we go. When... no form. When creature has BI die, can use your skill proficiency. So this is more the bard showing how to do something. Less, hey, you can do the thing. More, not only can you do the thing, this is how you will do the thing. Again, tying it back into this is how you will get through the long night. You will do this thing, followed by this thing, followed by this thing, and you will succeed. And therefore, remain positive. Whereas the other college is like, hey, everything's going to be fine. Everything will be fine. We can do this. We can go through this together. Two different sides of the same coin. Just focusing on the dark and what it takes to get through that, rather than focusing on the inevitable sunrise at the end and carrying the sun through the night. If you will excuse a rather poetic turn of phrase that made me sound extremely pretentious. But then again, I'm literally sitting here talking to people on the internet for 2 hours every 2 weeks on a soapbox that I probably don't deserve. Anyway, unwavering resolve. Beginning at 3rd level. Your ability to inspire the focus of others allows you to aid them in spellcasting. Whenever a creature you can see in range makes a concentration check. Like, this is not a reaction, because the bardic inspiration itself is limited to, as I've mentioned, your charisma modifier. Initially, this is you get the expended uses back on a long rest, so like an 8-hour rest at it's level 5, I think. I could check, but time. You get them back at short rest. Must they be able to see or sense where they are? See. The thing is, Bardic Inspiration itself requires that your target can hear you. So I'm happy with just you can see in range, because the Bard is a spellcaster, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can sense when people's spells are being interrupted, unless you take a... I'd allow that as an action. Whenever a creature you can see that fulfills the requirements... Did that explain my thought process enough, Unstable Deus? Of your Bardic Inspiration class feature. Makes a concentration check. You may expend a usage of the Bardic Inspiration class feature. Let's just say of that class feature, because it's already been mentioned and it avoids repetition. To grant them advantage on the check. If they have a Bardic Inspiration die, I don't know, I keep saying it that way, I'm sorry. Which die, they may still apply that to the check. Alternatively, whenever a creature you can see that fulfills the requirements of Bardic Inspiration class feature, begins casting a ritual. Oh, how about this then? How about this? Rather than expending a usage of the Bardic Inspiration without rolling, you roll a die. For context, where is it? Where's the table? There it is. For context, the Bardic Inspiration die at first level is a d6. It increases to a d8 at 5th level, a d10 at 10th level, a d12 at 15th level. Rather than just halving the ritual time, expend a Bardic Inspiration die and roll it. Multiply that result by 5, and that is how much time you shorten the ritual by. So that gives you a minimum value of 5 minutes to an hour, at the highest level. But also, broadly speaking, ritual spells have longer than just a instantaneous spellcasting time. So some like a minute, some of them are 10 minutes, some of them are an hour. I just want to check something. And I may as well. It's the same text in the SRD, so I'm just going to use my player's handbook. Whenever I talk about rituals, I always doubt myself. I mean, I use ritual casting a lot in game, but I always doubt myself. 10 minutes longer to cast, not an hour. It's because a lot of the spells I cast have an hour. Okay. I'm happy to just multiply. The ritual is less. Ritual casting time is lessened by a number of minutes equal to the roll of the Bardic Inspiration die. Because it's either going to be a minute less, or half the time at d6, and then obviously over that, it's getting to the point where the ritual side of things isn't really taken up. The ritual doesn't apply, but you're still into the casting time. Could do it half the value, minimum of 1. Be fine. Begins casting a ritual. You may roll a... you may expend a usage of that class feature. Expend a usage? Expend a use. Of that class feature. To roll a bardic inspiration die and shorten the spellcasting time by an amount, by a number of minutes equal to the value rolled. There we go. Bardic, that's a name. That's not a thing. That's a pretty cool name though. All right, I see I've only got 10 minutes left, so I will probably finish. I will mechanically write out isolate, reflect on these two, and then wrap up. Okay, so from third level, you can draw upon the long dark of the winter night to instill a sense of loneliness in others. As an action, you may target a creature that fulfills the requirements of your Bardic Inspiration class feature. There's too many ends there. Too many U's there. How to phrase this? You may expend a use of that class feature to roll a Bardic Inspiration die. That's Bardic again. Shout out to Bardic. To roll a Bardic Inspiration die. The target of this feature may not be affected by spells, features, abilities, or actions possessed by their allies for a number of hours equal to the value rolled. Value or number? I think it's number. That I can check easily though. I'll just check that right now. Bardic Inspiration feature. Number rolled. There we go. Consistency of language is incredibly important. If you spend an hour in conversation with the target, still expend a use of your Bardic. Let's see, even fewer letters. Bardic Inspiration class feature, but the effect lasts for a number of hours equal to the maximum value of your Bardic Inspiration die. reflect on these two. Beginning at 3rd level, your ability to inspire the focus of others allows you to aid them in spellcasting whenever you, a creature. Whenever a creature you can see that fulfills the requirements of your Bardic Inspiration class feature makes a concentration check, you may expend a use of that class feature to grant them advantage on the check. Let's have whenever you or a creature you can see. That fulfills the requirements of your Bardic Inspiration class feature makes a concentration check, you may expend a use of that class feature to grant yourself or them advantage on the check. If they have Bardic Inspiration die, they may still apply that to the check. Alternatively, whenever a creature you can see that fulfills the requirements of your Bardic Inspiration class feature begins casting ritual, let's do this the same again. Whenever you or a creature you can see fulfills the requirements of your Bardic Inspiration class feature begins casting ritual, you may expend use of that class feature to roll Bardic Inspiration that shortens the spellcast down by a number of minutes equal to the number roll. I'm happy with that. Isolate. From 3rd level, you can draw upon the long dark of the winter night to instill a sense of loneliness in others. As an action, you may target a creature that fulfills the requirements of your Bardic Inspiration class feature. You may expend a use of that class feature to roll a Bardic Inspiration die. The target of this feature may not be affected by spells, features, abilities, or actions possessed by their allies for a number of hours equal to the number roll. If you spend an hour in conversation with the target, you must still expend a use of your Bardic Inspiration class feature with the effect lasts for a number of hours equal to the maximum value of your Bardic Inspiration die. I'm happy with both of those. My prep for this was kind of just thinking of possible ways I could twist the mechanics into getting the effects I wanted, and I'm extremely happy, particularly with how Isolate has turned out. To pat myself on the back in a moment of rare self-aggrandizement. Aggrandizement. So I don't have time right now to go through the others, so that we'll have to wait until next time, which, friendly reminder, I stream on this channel every 2 weeks, so that will be the 24th of November, hopefully, where I will finish the Bard, move on to the community domain of the Cleric. What I might do, if I find the time, is the Cleric, the Druid, and the Paladin all get spells based on their subclass. I may select those ahead of time just to cut down on faffing around in the PDF more than anything. But I will explain why the spell choices have been made, so that is still present. I also, of course, need to devise the narrative for the Warlock and Wizard traditions, subclasses. Sounds good. Good, I'm glad. Obviously, I rely a lot on interaction during the show. To figure out what's working, what isn't. For instance, how's the new overlay? Do people like the new overlay? I thought the old one was fine. It was just very visually busy with all of the paper crinkles. Question, if a character is blind, how does seeing work if they use another sense? Yeah, see, D&D has not much in that instance. It doesn't really support blind characters. If that were the case, I would just use common sense and be like, if you are blind, then something else works. What's the wording? It's like with Bardic Inspiration. Bardic Inspiration requires your target to hear you, but if the target is, deaf, capital D deaf, a member of the deaf community, rather than simply deafened by a game feature, I would be fine allowing you to still target that person. Same if you're blind, but you have other ways of detecting party members or allies or what have you, that's fine too. Did that answer the question? This is a problem that, in general, 5e has with inclusivity when things rely on you seeing targets or being able to hear something. Yeah, just ear modification. Because as written, if you want to play a blind character, you're at disadvantage to hit every attack's at disadvantage essentially, unless you don't need to be able to see where the because attack rolls are just made with disadvantage with the blind condition. It's a problem. that I'm trying to fix on my Patreon material, because that's my own game line, so to speak, my own product. But it's kind of just unfortunately baked into the SRD. Yes, as I was saying, anyway, I rely on chat interactions to tell me how the show's going. If you are watching this video on demand on YouTube, by all means, feel free to leave a comment. If you are watching it video on demand on Twitch, I do have a Twitter account. It's Comrade Bubbles. If you do want to tweet any comments, criticisms, feedback, etc. that way. Also, I stream on my own channel, Comrade Bubbles. I do video game streams, so I'm always happy to discuss nerd culture. My community seem to enjoy what I put out, though, so hopefully that's fine. Ordinarily, I would stream after this, but I am very, very tired. I've been waking up at ridiculously early hours of the morning, and there've been loud noises outside our bedroom window, and obviously stress and everything. So I'm taking at least today off of streaming. Hopefully everyone understands. But I wanted to honor my word to Onyx Path to stream today, for them at least. But I am always happy to talk role-playing stuff over on there when I am streaming. I have my own Discord as well, but the sleep is very good. I do also hang out in the Onyx Path Discord server, not any voice channels, but on the text channels. So the Nightbot link is a good way to kind of discuss things. There, I'm Comrade Bubbles on that server as well. Would you believe? So feel free to tag me. And as I mentioned at the start of the show, the Monday meeting notes are a good place to go for project updates, company updates, etc. Of import to the show's content right now, the next Kickstarter, and looks like the last of the year. There is no date as of yet, but it will be before the end of the year. Will be Dead Man's Rust, a mega adventure for Scarredlands. Quite what that means, I have no idea. I have not had time to listen to the interviews and read the other assorted material that Travis Legg has been tirelessly submitting. I've been on Twitch later in the week, correct? I should be streaming tomorrow on Stable Dales. I should be streaming tomorrow and on Friday. I'm just very tired right now, so I'm going to try and get a good night's sleep. But that will also be on my channel. Yes. So I don't entirely know what it's about, but if it's as good a quality as the Player's Guide and as of everything I've seen of Vigil Watch and Yugman's Guide to Gelthbad, it will be a heckin' good time overall, and you should all probably back it as soon as you can. Obviously, if you're not interested in 5e stuff, then there's no pressure. I'm horrendously biased. I like 5e. I love Scarredlands. It's a great setting. And obviously I enjoy writing material for it. So there we go. That's all from me, I think. If you're interested in what else is on the channel, please do stick around for the post-roll, where the visual branding and the schedule goes up. I will be in chat for a couple of minutes anyway, while the post-roll rolls, if you have any questions. But I think that's all for now. So, as usual, from me, at least, please do stay safe. Please do stay healthy. And in these extremely dark and trying times, please do stay wholesome. Thank you all for the support, and I'll see you around.